So come join me on Nightmare Truth, where all the stories you are about to hear are true.
Story 1. One afternoon in Pulaski County, Kentucky, USA, 1938, Carl Pruitt arrived home after a hard day's work, only to find his wife in bed with another man. Rage consumed Pruitt. He grabbed a chain and hit her, then he jumped on top of her during a violent struggle and strangled his wife to death. He no longer wanted to be of this world, so he committed suicide. Pruitt was buried in the local cemetery, and it wasn't long before visitors to the graveyard noticed yellow stains appearing on Carl Pruitt's grave. These were not to be confused with the piss stains like you might find in my local cemetery. The stains formed the shape of a chain. People were freaked out by this, and it only added to the intrigue. One day, 3 little rascals rode their bikes up to the grave. One of the boys picked up a rock and threw it at the mysterious gravestone. On his way home, the bike chain snapped as he rode his bike, and in some strange supernatural revenge attack, it wrapped around his neck and choked him to death. His mother was distraught and furious. She grabbed a hacksaw and headed towards Carl Pruitt's gravestone. She attacked it with furious anger. She caused some damage. A while later, when she was back home, she was hanging out the washing when the clothesline snapped. It wrapped itself around her neck and strangled her to death. A week later, a farmer was driving a horse-drawn carriage by the graveyard. He, for some reason, fired a gun at the Pruitt gravestone. The gunshot freaked the horses out. The farmer was thrown from the carriage as the reins wrapped around his neck. He was pulled along by the horses and died slowly of strangulation. Once again, Carl Pruitt's spirit had gone all death wish on somebody. The story spread around town quicker than herpes in a jam-packed whorehouse. 2 policemen drove to the graveyard, thinking the story was excrement from a bull's bottom. They took pictures of themselves, stood against a gravestone. During the drive back to the station, they noticed some strange, unexplainable lights in the background. They started to speed away. The lights followed. They could not seem to lose them. The driver lost control and crashed into a fence. One of the policemen survived, but the other officer had flown out of the window. He was decapitated by a chain linking 2 fence posts. Carl Pruitt strikes again. A lot of people were frightened to go near the cursed gravestone. Some believed it was the work of the devil. A man in a fit of rage went up to the gravestone, armed with a hammer. He smashed and smashed at the gravestone. Suddenly there was a scream of terror. When townsfolk went to see what the commotion was, they found the poor soul dead at the graveyard gates. He had an absolute lock of terror etched into his face, and they also had a chain used to lock the gates wrapped around his neck. That was enough. Something had to be done. The town ordered the exhumation of Carl Pruitt's body. They closed the graveyard, as well as getting rid of the cursed gravestone. Is that Carl Pruitt behind you? Story 2. Amethyst Realm, a British lady from the city of Bristol in England, was and still is involved in a supernatural event that may just blow your mind. The name Amethyst originates from the Asian Greek language, meaning intoxicated. It led people to believe the amethyst crystal would protect them from drunkenness. This delightful lady, Amethyst, may not quite adhere to that policy. It all started way back in 2005. Amethyst moved into a new home with her fiancé. They were deeply in love, and life was going great. That is until they discovered their home was haunted. They heard noises when no one else was there. They would often feel cold, chills, and they would occasionally see objects moving on their own. The spooky occurrences soon became more physical when Amethyst would feel cold pressure on her thighs and feel like she was being stroked. She often felt somebody breathe down the back of her neck, getting all cold and bothered. It didn't feel threatening. It felt sensual, supernatural, sensual. Amethyst began an affair with the ghost and would let it ghost hump her when she was alone. This went on for 3 years. If her husband came home unexpectedly, the ghost found it easy to hide by just disappearing and walking through walls. One dark night, Amethyst's fiancé awoke to find a shadowy figure on top of her and quickly jumped out of bed, no doubt with slightly browner pants than he went to bed with. She confessed to an affair which ultimately ended their relationship. With her poor, unfortunate fiancé now off the scene, Amethyst, who happened to be a psychic who found a way of connecting to the spirits, began having sex with lots of different ghosts. There was ectoplasm everywhere. During a trip to Australia, she was in the bush when she met a ghost there. She became extremely fond of the spirit. It wasn't long before the ghost was in the bush too. Sadly for her, when she had to return back to the UK, she was gutted as she thought that would be the last of her down-under ghostly lover, as spirits don't usually travel. But to her Amethyst's amazement, the ghost also appeared on her flight. Maybe it was a British Scareways flight. She felt a tingling sensation, her ears popped. She nipped to the toilet and soon joined the Mile High Club, with the ghost putting the willies up her. Who she later learned was called Ray. They were besotted with each other. Although he couldn't pay towards the rent, he moved into her home. It wasn't too long before Amethyst and Spooky Ray became engaged. After Ray the ghost popped the question in a cave in Somerset, he did not get down on his knees as he didn't have any. But she did hear his voice for the first time, and it was by all account deep, sexy, and real. Amethyst Realm says, and I quote,
"Orgasms I've had with my spirit lovers have been way more satisfying than any I've ever had with an ordinary man."
Well, it's a bad day at the office when you find out a dead guy is better off in the bedroom department than you are. Amethyst's friends and family were a bit reluctant to accept the spirited engagement. Was it because he's a ghost? Were they worried he may have been permanently naked? But had no way of knowing. Who knows? They soon got their heads around it. Amethyst and Ray the Ghost were due to be married in the year 2020. But sadly, the wedding was called off because of Ray the Ghost mid-afterlife crisis behavior. Amethyst believes she may have scared off Ray because of her talk of having babies. Yes, my head hurts too. It seems whilst on holiday, Ray started staying out late and got in with a bad crowd. He brought a load of spirits back to the apartment. No, not those kind, the undead kind. The ghost gang and Ray partied until the wee hours. The spirits trashed the place and made spooky noises. They took drugs. Amethyst and Ray were no longer seeing eye to eye and sadly are now separated. Have you ever had a relationship with a ghost? Are you a ghost who prefers humans to spirits? Don't forget to lock your door, and don't let Ray the Spirit bite.